All right, the Tangent Gentleman, episode 2. I'm back with Scott. And Scott,
how you doing, Brad?
I'm good. You got a drink tonight?
I do.
What are you having?
I am having an old-fashioned.
Okay.
In a, am I allowed to say the brand?
Yeah.
A glass from a local brand. Aaron and I actually went to Maker's Mark last week and on a little date night. And but anyway, I said, hey, I have some of those glasses at home. I'm going to get them out for Christmas. So I got them out. So here we go.
I thought maybe you got to dip it yourself. I've got a Dogfish 120. Have you ever had one of these?
I'm aware of them. I do not like hoppy beers.
Oh, well, you would not like this.
Yeah.
This is like 4 beers. It's 17%.
Oh, my gosh. There's a brewery in Lexington, West 6. I don't know if you've ever had any of their stuff.
Yeah.
But they have a seasonal release. I got to get some. It comes out around Christmas called Snake Eyes. It's a Imperial Stout. It's 12%. So it's some high octane for sure. So
yeah, first time my dad tasted an IPA, he was like, how in the world can anyone like that? I guess it is an acquired taste.
I'm with your father on that one. I think it tastes like grass.
All right. So, we staying true to intentionally being underprepared. We have not talked since the last show. We just know that the topic is structure of schooling, wherever that goes. And we did talk a little this week through text back and forth on our podcast logo. It's pretty cool. We got a little logo now.
Yep.
Which one we're going to go with. I was confusing myself because I was calling 1, 2, and 3 different than you were and different than she was.
Yeah, we need to talk about that because I've got some input from a variety of sources, so we'll have to discuss. But
all right, so don't hang up when we say goodbye to our listeners.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so what do you think? Where do you think we should start with this structure of school? Does the traditional model work? I think we kind of agreed last show that we both agree that it's not working and maybe not preparing students best.
Yeah. I guess for me, a little bit of history about why. When did we get from the, I guess are we mostly talking about high school, right? Since that's mostly what we knew. Or you want to go
I say we can start wherever.
Okay. It is a agrarian model, right? I mean, it's based around the calendar's based around the farm lifestyle that people lived, and the day is pretty much in some variation of the 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's a fair amount of information that may not be what's best for kids as far as those times. I personally never quite understood I liked the summers off as a classroom teacher, but I never quite understood why we just took off 3 months or 2.5 months from learning. That's not the way we work. So that was one that always puzzled me, continues to puzzle me. So,
yeah. And, recently there has been talk about whether, you hear a lot more about year-round schooling now than you used to. So, I mean, I think people know the value of continuing learning. I want to, just one question. Oh, and one of the things I wanted to mention that you hit on, and especially in high school, I definitely think the time has gone that high school students need to be in school from 8 to 3 in a desk 5 days a week. That.
Yeah.
I don't think that works anymore. But I thought of a question today. I wanted to ask you this: if you could just take away everything you know about the traditional model of schooling, and you are where you are now in life, you're retired, you're financially independent, you're stable, got a home, and for some reason you had all of these kids, let's say 5-year-olds, 4 or 5-year-olds.
Okay.
And there's no state mandates. There's no expectations on how you prepare your. How many kids you want to have?
15.
You had 15 5-year-olds. Let's say 10.
Okay.
You have 10 5-year-olds. And it's up to you to decide how to prepare them for the world. What would schooling look like in your house, in your world, for those 10 5-year-olds?
Well, my first response would be something along the Montessori approach. I mean, my kids did that lots. They went to Montessori preschool. Very, for lack of a better word, practical. You know, they learned fractions by making cookies or cooking. You know, they learned geography by using maps, where they had to practice their manual dexterity skills, which they then used later in the day to learn how to hold a pencil. You know, stuff like that. I think I would make it. I would try to be, with little ones, I would probably stay away from a large percentage of technology. I would have them interacting with one another. I would have them observing a lot. You know, I mean, I was always a big advocate of explore before explain. And obviously, you're not going to get too much into explanation details with 5-year-olds, but just have them witness sort of what phenomenon, as we used to call it in science class, and then try to come up with some sort of explanation and spark that curiosity and get them to wonder. So I think a lot of experiential wandering, get them outside, just see as much of the natural world and try to observe the natural world, but also share ideas with their classmates, share thoughts, and, you know, whatever means of communication they were good at, whether it was just talking to one another or if they were, you know, early writers. You would know better than I what 5-year-olds writing typically can do. So something along a day would be like that. A little bit of a lot of exploration, a lot of just observing, and then many opportunities over the course of 6 or 7 hours to share ideas, share thinkings, and then ask each other questions about, did you notice this? Why did you think about that? What does that look like? So,
yeah.
What about you? Where would you be?
Well, you know, I think the easy answer, I guess, would be I would want them to learn just by living, you know, finding those teachable moments, and how you could do that and fit that into schooling. Because as you were talking about Montessori programs, and as I was thinking about elementary schools, and, you know, I had 5 years where I got to spend quite a bit of time in elementary schools, and I'm not sure kindergarten and first grade. I mean, I said a lot. I would love to take high school teachers back to watch a great kindergarten teacher, because the way they manage the classroom and identify individual needs, you know, more than whole group in a lot of other grades is pretty remarkable. And how they do it with, you know, 20 to 24 kids, some of them, and you got to be a tremendous teacher to be able to do that. And I mean, I'm sure at some point in our conversations we'll get to teacher-student ratios. But one thing I learned in elementary school, almost all kindergarten, first grade, second grade kids love school. Yeah. Almost all of them. Third grade, some of them start hating school. And you know what happens with third grade? You start having, you know, you start the standards-based instruction. You have the state mandated, you know, that's enforced a whole lot more, and everything is just based on learning outcomes for the whole group that's going to be tested at the end of the year. And then by fifth grade, I would say there's not much difference between that and high school when it comes to disengagement. Because
I know specifically because I was, in science education and, various degrees of that. That's exactly the model. That's exactly what we saw. That scientific intellectual curiosity peaked late second grade, third grade. Kids were excited about science. They loved science. They wanted to know. They had, they were wow, lots of curiosity. And then when we started to restrict it to, these are the questions you can ask, these are the questions we'll answer, it starts to wane, and it's
yeah.
So
and the reason it gets so bad at fifth grade, at least where we were, that's the first grade that's really held highly accountable. Fourth grade, and then fifth grade, and by fifth grade, and I'd heard that something like 2/3 of high school students maybe don't hate school, but they're just not engaged in school.
Right. Yeah.
And I bet there's some you could find a lot higher than that. So, really, if you think about that, this, standards-based, state-mandated curriculum on what's going to be tested and everybody's going to be held accountable for at the end of the year, we're just killing that natural love of learning.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me, you mentioned the kindergarten teachers and their ability to just manage 20, young minds and, all over the place. I love watching and talking. I mean, when my kids were in elementary school, the lack of a distinction. This is math class. This is science class. This is English class. Mm-hmm. I never understood that. I mean, when I worked at the district level, the fight I fought and failed at every year was, can we just teach integrated science for 4 years in high school? Can we stop calling it biology, chemistry, physics, and whatever else? Can we just say it's science, and we will overlay the content as needed for the topic? Because to me, I always struggled with, I always felt like it was kind of a lie to the kids saying, oh, this is important. This is science. Well, if it's important, say, why do I need to know this? Well, if you really need to know this, then it should overlay all aspects of whatever topic you want to talk about. And I would challenge kids all the time, say, you can't give me a topic that I can't connect to chemistry or physics. I mean, you just can't.
Yeah.
I can connect it to anything. And I feel that is partly because that's how our brain works. I don't think we think of things as compartmentalized as schools try to make them. And
no, definitely not. And I think that goes back to what we were talking before. A lot of it's, I don't know if college prep would be the right word. When you've got these learning outcomes. I think for the longest time, at least during my lifetime, success in school was probably being college prepared.
Right.
And I'm not, I don't think being college prepared is being real world prepared.
Right.
So, how do you move towards being more real world prepared? And it's probably, I said it before, learning by living. How do you take that into school? How do you learn what kids are interested in and cultivate that for the kids?
Yeah. I think but unfortunately it runs itself up against something that we struggled with in our traditional model, which is rigor. How do you ensure that kids are really pushing and being pushed? My personal experience was when kids were engaged in a project, they would go further than if it was, let's do these 12 problems. Let's do this chapter in the book. Kids were doing, I had an experience one time of advanced chemistry, second year chemistry class. And I had kids doing college level organic chemistry to a certain extent, because it was a project we had created where they were doing like medical-like research on these patients, and they needed to know the answer of these metabolic conditions, which were all based in some, marginally sophisticated biochemistry for which they had to understand some organic chemistry. I never taught them organic chemistry. But it was like, if you want to understand why this biological process is happening this way, you're going to have to dive into chemistry a little bit deeper, and in a way that we didn't do traditionally. And they got into it, there's an argument to be made. These were 12, 15 of the best and brightest at our school. And, that's what those kids will do. But can you do that with every kid? I could also make the case that when I taught comprehensive integrated science, when we did the photography unit for chemistry, kids were into that. I mean, I've over the years, kids have come to me and said, I remember we made those cameras in chemistry class. And we did, we made those those cameras. And so for me, that was a way to teach, mechanisms of reactions in chemistry and rates of reactions in chemistry and all these topics that are chemistry topics. But yet it had some novelty to it, but it also it met them where they were. They love to take pictures of things. They love to take pictures of each other. And wow, isn't it amazing that, this was back in the day when we actually still use film, but you open this box, you let a little light in, you put a piece of plastic that's got some chemicals on it, and then you run that plastic through some other chemicals, and it makes a picture. It makes an image. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just one example, but I also think it's representative of the amazement. Like you got to make learning amazing. And for me, it was science because I was into science. That was what I taught mostly, but I saw it. I mean, my wife she taught math for 32 years. She did it with math,
Yeah.
And I think it is getting kids, meeting them where they are. That's a thing. So
how is it possible? Okay, so I think there's an inherent advantage for learning at, say, K through 2, because just about everything that those kids are running into in school is somewhat new to them, or some aspect of it is new.
Correct.
And so, the learning is just kind of natural. It might be inherent there, but and I'm not taking anything from primary education, but is it possible to follow learning needs and individual needs and social learning and emotional learning and everything that goes along with it in a school all the way through? Is that even possible?
I think it is, if you accept that a high school graduate, whatever that means, when you reach that point, that they won't all be the same. Like you have to accept that this particular version is going to be, exceptional or very well versed and capable and accomplished in public speaking. But their understanding or their knowledge in chemistry or sciences may be less than,
And then you run into the issue there that some of those skills are very hard to test with a ACT or SAT.
Sure they are. Absolutely.
So I mean, it goes all the way up. But
right.
Thinking about, the high school where we retired, where we were, our last school we were in, had the heavy equipment program. And I mean, I can think of several kids that got a high school diploma because they were in that heavy equipment program.
Yes.
And how nice would it be if those kids didn't have to take these individual subjects and meet these same requirements as every other kid in the school, and could focus on their love of operating heavy equipment and learning construction and the math that goes with that and the science that goes with that and the communication that goes with that and the leadership that goes with that, and all the components within that industry. And that's their learning at that point.
Right.
They have their own set program there. And I know there's going to be issues back, with the R word rigor. How do we know? How do we know that we're going to be pushing those students? But if they really like what they're doing, they're probably going. I mean, I think we all like to learn. I think we do. But honestly, there's no reason for them to memorize everything in world history and then go to algebra 2 or pre-calculus and learn math that they will probably never use on their job or even chemistry. I mean, how many times do we do things in chemistry class that you never do after high school or college?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to that point, I had over the years had this conversation with a good friend of mine who's a he's a doctor, and he was saying, I can't tell you the last time I really used algebra.
Oh yeah.
He said, except when I was trying to figure out like what kind of gas mileage my car got.
Yeah. And
I thought, wow, like you're a doctor, like you're doing smart stuff all day long. You're saving people's lives. He said, yeah. He said, but I know that the amount of drug I give a patient is based upon their weight, but I don't do that anymore. Like there's it's on my phone or it's in a chart. I just look up and it's like this person weighs this much. I give them this drug. They need to get, 25 milliliters or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess my one sort of pushback to this conversation is I always struggled with school being exclusively vocational. I am a huge proponent of the arts and humanities and enriching your mind and your spirit. I think that's really important. And, I'm a guy that got a math and chemistry degree. I mean, that's what I did, but
yeah,
but I love reading. I love, I love movies. I love songs. Those things enrich life. And I guess that's where, to your point about the heavy highway kids or whatever, fire science or whatever the professional program the kids are working on, I still think those kids are human beings, and those humanity type things can also be made available in the context of those works,
Yeah. Yeah. So we still need elective courses.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would argue we might need electives more so than the core.
Yeah.
And I think incorporating the core into the electives will be a much more successful strategy.
Yeah. But we could back up even further and say we don't need to break it down into individual subjects, distinct subjects by a period of 50 minutes or 80 minutes or 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I have both seen, and we've flirted with, used variations on project-based learning for the past 25 years that we were in. I mean, I can think early on the one project I did probably in about year 5 or 6, I had I was doing this. It's when we first sent the probe to Mars, and I had the kids getting on the internet, the very primitive internet, and getting data from NASA. And
all right, come back next period. We'll be on this website.
Yeah, and they, but and we framed it in the idea of, is it a good use? Because I did it with the social studies teacher. Is it a good use of money? Is this something that we should be spending money on? This millions of dollars to send these probes to Mars and gather this information back? Where's the value in that? Is that a value? And it just, to me, it was a great project because there was a lot of rigorous science and how do you get a probe to Mars? How do you operate a probe on Mars? But then there's this whole idea about why should we? Or should we? And what's,
did you come to a class conclusion?
They pretty much decided it was not a good use. It was interesting. They decided that in of itself was not a good use, but they also recognized so many of the lifestyle things that we have are consequences of science, advanced science, indirectly. The proverbial Velcro and Tang and all those things came about as a result. You could make a pretty good argument that cell phones came about as a result of the space program. And so would that have happened without the space program? I don't know. But so they liked that part of it, but they thought in and of itself, it was not a good use of monies. So,
yeah. Yeah. So what class was that?
That was an sophomore integrated science class. So
sophomores.
So I was teaching. That was probably under space in the space unit after the chemistry unit because we got a little bit in. They knew enough chemistry to talk about the analyses that they were doing in terms of what was on the soil on Mars. Why were they collecting these samples? What were they bringing back? So
what would an elementary school look like if at a certain age you started picking up individual strengths, interest, creativity, curiosities? How do you, we've struggled with it for so long. How do you meet individual needs in a school, even a medium-sized school district, but especially a large school district?
I think one of the problems, I guess my shorter answer is you take grades away. Yeah. Because when you start to make it about grades, everyone, kids, teachers, parents, principals, they get overly focused on that measure of achievement, and there's not a real focus on the enrichment. Because, Brad's really good at this part of it, and Scott's really good at this other part of it, but we can't give them both an A in English. Why do we have to get an A in English? Why does that matter? And I guess to me, one of the things that has to happen is we have to go back to kind of a holistic assessment approach. Show me what you've learned. Show me how you've grown this year. Yeah. And if we do that, I think you let kids foster and develop. But that's a tough sell. We know that. So
yeah. And then and you're not going to be able to go there as long as you have tests in the spring that are expecting everybody to know certain things.
Right. And then what do you do with the results of those tests?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think we've never said in this we're opposed to student accountability.
No.
And I think that's one thing that really annoys me is that when I'm in conversations like this or I hear people talk about things like this, a lot of the criticisms, or one of the most vocal criticisms becomes, oh, well, you have to have accountability. You can't just let kids do nothing. Well, in no way are we advocating doing nothing. We're actually advocating doing a lot of something that they're into, something that they want to do.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. We both know if you look at on a global scale, there's a lot. Again, when you look on a global scale and you start to talk about who's successful and who's not, what countries are good, what programs are more successful, a lot of times they're successful on the assessment instrument.
Yeah.
And I just I don't know.
Yeah, that's the measure.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's something easy to do and something easy to measure. And honestly, it's easy to teach. Well, no, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's simple. It's simple.
Yeah. Right.
If you know what the state mandated curriculum is, and you make sure there's no gaps across all your subjects, that you're covering everything, and you have everybody on board, as well as I do. It's not. I said easy at first. It's not easy at all. It's very hard, but it's a simple formula. Yeah. And if you got everybody there, you can win that game. Yeah. I mean, the high school where we were able to do that, we went from 3rd percentile to 70th percentile in 5 years. In 5 years, but we've got to figure out how to continue the love of learning beyond kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think
we are already at 31 minutes.
Wow. Okay. All right. So what's our tangent? Where are we going next week?
I'm kind of feeling like we need to. My thought is this idea of how do you ensure high levels of learning without the things we said we need to do away with, without grades, without standardized tests, without, individual subjects. Think we should start there?
Yeah. Do we want to? Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get. I don't know. I don't feel like this was as fun as last week. we're a little too. Got a little wonky on this one. Yeah. We got no weeds.
The other thing we could talk about is traveling to Mars.
Yeah. The practicality, the feasibility,
yeah.
Should we even? Yeah.
Maybe the idea of what's out there. What do you think?
Yeah, we could. Well, I mean, maybe. Okay, maybe this is the thing. How do we take students' genuine interest and direct it to? It sounds too cold, but to a practical application. How do you get that curiosity and have kids connect that to, this is something I'd like to do, or I'd like to know more about? Because one of my big problems is I think it's ridiculous that we expect a 15-year-old to be able to tell me, this is what I want to do with my life. Yeah. I sure didn't end up doing what the 15-year-old me thought I was going to do. So,
no. But it also wasn't a waste of time doing the things you did to try to prepare for what you thought you wanted to do at 15 years old.
No, because I think early on, probably even before 15, I decided learning was what I wanted to do. Like I was just going to learn more and more and more. And then something would happen. And I was fortunate. Something did happen that I happened upon. So, all right. So let's.
All right. So the tangent gentleman grade the world. What are we grading today?
Structure of school.
Yeah. We didn't really talk much about how that should probably change. Huh. We need a topic for next. I'm gonna grade us on making headway on solving the structure of schooling issues as a D. We didn't do very well.
Yeah, I agree.
We generated some ideas. Yeah,
I would say I would be a D minus probably.
So,
and I'm yeah. So what's our tangent? Where do you want to go next week?
Well, we could talk about space travel, or we could talk about doing away with grades. We didn't hit a tangent today, did we? Other than talking about Dogfish 120.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about next week, Scott? We got to decide quickly.
I like this idea of space travel as an example of what should we do with science.
All right.
Like what?
So next week? It's space travel, and maybe even get into some conspiracy theories. Who knows?
Oh, great. Area 51, here we come.
All right, man. The Tangent Gentleman episode 2's in the bags.
Okay, good deal.
Been fun, Scott.
Yeah.
30 minutes goes quick, but
yes, it does.
We don't want people to have to listen to us drone on forever. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, we'll see you.